Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really fascinating white paper that maps out a survival plan for Servas, a global peace movement that's been around for an incredible 75 years.
So, it all started with this guy, Bob Lute Weiler. Now, you have to picture the scene. It's right after World War II, and he had this vision for what he called a work-study-travel system. The whole point was to build peace from the ground up, literally one person at a time.
And his whole philosophy, right, it was built on this really simple but honestly pretty profound idea that we're all part of one big global family. This was never just about tourism. It was about truly connecting and finding our common humanity. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how did that actually work? What was the game plan for building peace in the real world? Well, it was a pretty dynamic movement that stood on three main pillars. First up, you had work camps, which was about getting your hands dirty, literally helping to rebuild communities torn apart by war. Then there was peace activism, to actually tackle the root causes of conflict. And finally, the big one, homestays, which created the space for these deep, perspective-shifting conversations between total strangers.
So for decades, this worked incredibly well. But, the world changes. And right now, Servas is staring down some pretty serious challenges that are forcing them to ask some tough questions and make a major, major change.
And what's really impressive, honestly, is that the organization's own white paper doesn't pull any punches. It points to three huge issues. First, development has stalled out. Second, the financial pressure is getting intense. And third, its old structure is actually getting in the way of democratic participation.
Let's start with that stagnation problem. And wow, the numbers really tell the story here. The organization has seen less than 1% average annual growth since the 90s. And that's not just a bad year, that's a whole generation of basically standing still.
And of course, that stagnation hits them right in the wallet. Costs keep going up, but the money coming in from members isn't keeping pace, and boom, you end up with a deficit of over 12,000 Swiss francs. It's a huge red flag that the old funding model just isn't cutting it anymore.
And then there's this. This chart, it's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it? A full 60% of their members are over 60 years old. Meanwhile, people under 30 make up just 9%. You don't need me to tell you that if you can't bring in the next generation, the future of the mission is in serious trouble.
So with all these challenges piling up, what's the plan? Well, the white paper proposes a really bold two-part solution. And it all begins with a fundamental redesign of how the organization is even structured.
They're calling it the hybrid model, and I love this visual of it as a living tree. It's the perfect metaphor. You've still got the traditional branches, the national groups and chapters, but now they're grafting on these new pathways for individuals to join directly. It's all part of the same organism, sharing the same core mission.
And when you dig into the details, it's actually pretty smart. They're creating specific ways for different people and groups to plug in. There's a spot for dedicated longtime members, a pathway for people from smaller groups to get a seat at the table, and they're even opening the door to formally partner with other peace and human rights organizations.
And this is absolutely crucial. This hybrid model is engineered to be a direct solution to those problems we just talked about. It tackles the democracy issue by giving individuals a direct voice. It addresses the financial strain by creating new, more stable funding streams. And really important, it helps mitigate the risk of smaller groups getting left out of the global conversation.
Okay, so changing the structure is a huge deal. But this isn't just about tweaking an org chart or balancing a budget. This is all about enabling a powerful, re-energized return to the organization's core mission, actively building peace.
Because that new structure is what makes the second part of this whole plan possible, the Servas Peace Builders Project. And this is a real game changer. The idea is to transform members from, passive participants into active, trained, and certified peace builders.
And it's not just a nice idea. They've laid out a clear pathway. Members can join a learning program to develop real skills. We're talking things like self-awareness, conflict resolution, and intercultural dialogue. And they come out the other side as a certified peace builder, ready to lead their own initiatives. It's all about empowerment.
And get this, I think this part is so cool. To kick the whole thing off, they're launching the first pilot program in Askov, Denmark. Now, why there? Because that's the exact same town where the name Peace Builders was first used for the movement at a gathering way back in 1985. It's not just a new idea, it's a homecoming.
So when you put these two huge ideas together, the hybrid model and the Peace Builders Project, you start to see that this is way more than just a strategic pivot. It's being framed as a conscious and frankly necessary evolution.
The white paper uses this incredibly powerful analogy. It says Servas shouldn't be seen as a static machine, but as a living social organism. And the argument is crystal clear. Just like any living thing, if it stops growing and adapting, its very survival, its entire mission, is put at risk.
And this roadmap really ties it all together beautifully. You see how it all connects. You start with the foundation, fix participation, fix the finances. That gives you the stability to recenter the peace mission, to embrace new people, especially young people, and ultimately to achieve a full renewal for the next 75 years.
So the blueprint is on the table. It's a detailed, thoughtful plan for the future. But it leaves us with this one massive question, one that so many legacy organizations are wrestling with today. How do you completely reinvent yourself to survive in the modern world, without losing the very soul that made you worth saving in the first place?